Are you ready? Welcome to another episode of the Around the CFL podcast. Anthony here with you, and today we are finishing up the Kicker Club. It is our final episode of this series, and who better to end it off with than the reigning Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonaut kicker Lirim Hajrullahu. He joins us, and we talk about his career and things that he's done between the CFL and the NFL. So we'll be right back, and we'll get into it with Lirim Hajrullahu. Our Kicker Club series continues this week with another one of the CFL's very best. He's a two-time Grey Cup champion, three-time CFL East Division All-Star, and a one-time Most Outstanding Special Teams player. He's also played in both the NFL and CFL, joining us from the defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, kicker Lirim Hajrullahu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So how has your off-season been so far since winning the Grey Cup in BC?
It's been great. The biggest thing for me this offseason has been just trying to get this ankle healthy. I don't know if you remember, but got hurt right before the half, and the ankle just taking a little bit longer than expected to get ready. I just started slowly kicking the last couple of weeks, but I'm still not able to jog, which is killing me. Yeah, so most of my work, I can complete most of my workouts. Just when it comes to some running or cutting, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's coming along. I'm doing physio 2 to 3 times a week, and just trying to be as ready as possible before May comes around.
Do you have a timeline? Are you going to be okay and ready to go for May?
Yeah, like if I were asked to kick today, I would kick, but it's just the pushing off where I think it'd be like it won't be as effective as I would want to be is the kickoffs. I haven't tried any yet, but you know, in the last couple of weeks of the first time I went kicking felt great, but I only went to like 45 yards, and then next time because I felt great, I'm like, okay, I can keep going. And the physio was like, as long as the pain doesn't stay there, you can keep kicking. I said, okay, perfect. And then the second time I went a little longer, a little further, and then next 2 or 3 days were a little bit more difficult, but slowly get back into it, and just having the right team around me to make sure that I'll be ready to go come training camp.
That's awesome. That's great. What does your training schedule normally look like when it's not, when you're not dealing with an injury or recovering from an injury?
Yeah, I like to do 3 workouts throughout the week. So I'll do an upper body, lower body, and a full body, and I'll go Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday or Friday. In between, I'll add some flexibility and mobility on the days that I'm off. And then in January, I'll be kicking once a week. And so that schedule will commence all off season long, and then January will be kicking 1 time a week. February, I'd like to go 2 times a week, and then March and will be 3 times a week. In April, until about 2 weeks before, I'll still go 3 times a week in April, and then just taper it down right before training camp the last couple of weeks, just to let my body heal up, because I know training camps hours are long, and we don't do much work as kickers, but we do have to be out there and look busy for the most part. And but it's just that consistent kicking every day, and so that's the battle of it.
So when you say kicking, what are you out there doing field goal? Just for people who may not understand,
Yeah.
what kicking is like for training. So are you going out doing different distances, doing different angles? Like what does that look like?
Well, different, and you mentioned angles. Definitely when the hashes were wider, I'd always go kind of, we would have a drill where you would literally kick from the sideline and work on those angles. And every one that you made, you'd keep going down. So you started like 40 yards, and you go 35, and all the way down to when you get to the goal line. And that's always the toughest, because you look from the wind to go around the posts. But that's just to, put in perspective. And then we come back to the middle of the field goal hashes, like in the past, it's like, oh, well, this is super easy. That's not as you're not kicking from the sideline. So, but my main practice that I happen throughout the day or throughout the practice is I'll warm up those light kicks. I'll go at 30 yards. I'll do about, it's just like a golfer, right? He's going to pull out his wedge from 30 yards, and he's just going to hit those until he feels the body's moving right. And then I'll go to point afters and do about 10 of those there. and then I'll go depending on the day. If I need to work on a few things, I'll stay inside 40, 45. And then there's days where, I'm feeling great and I'll push it to further out. But I'll work different distances. I don't know if you guys watch basketball, but the one drill we always did, but it was called around the world. So
Hmm.
every kick you made, you moved up a spot. So we do that, and then go around the world for field goals. And then usually I'm kicking with some kickers in the area, whether they're college or free agent or other CFL kickers, and we'll have a little competition, and just to put it on the line, right? Because you got to recreate these type of game-like situations as much as you can.
Hmm.
And so we'll always play like horse, fun games like that when it comes to competition, but just something to put some pressure on, and then it'll result usually like either running sprints or they get coffee next time. Small little things, but bragging rights for the most part.
We're coming up on Pro Bowl week here in the
Yeah.
NFL. Do you think that there should be something similar for the CFL when it comes to stuff like this, like a skills competition, and like the NFL introduced flag football now
Mm.
with flag becoming an Olympic event? Do you think the CFL should try to adopt something similar to this, where there's a skills competition and whatnot, just to make Grey Cup week more exciting?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think you would add what you would add to that. You just have it during the Great Cup week. I mean,
Yeah.
the guys that are playing are not going to play in it anyways. So have it that week that these are the all-stars, and then you also bring some of these. You get a lot more fans from different teams coming, meeting some of the best players in the CFL. I think that's a great idea, and um, you know, I've been part of a few Great Cups in the area here, and with Hamilton last couple of years. When I played with them, I always did some volunteering stuff with them and did some of the runs with some of the guys I've played in the past. And it's always fun with the fans, and we have these certain stories. But how cool would it be if you brought flag football in one of the indoor
Mhm.
facilities, and just to add some more excitement for the guys. I think you reward them for coming
Mhm.
there, and then to enjoy. I know obviously they'd want to play in it, but you give them a reward for that aspect, and then you give the fans, a little bit more, um, being able to be closer to some of these bigger time players.
Yeah. When it comes to your career specifically, you had
Mm,
some earlier stints in Winnipeg, Toronto, and Hamilton, including the Grey
mm,
Cup in 2017. But then you headed down south and you played for the Los Angeles Rams, Carolina Panthers, Dallas Cowboys, and now the Washington Commanders.
mm.
How was the time in the NFL compared to your first stint in the CFL?
It's very similar in the aspect of when I went to Winnipeg, I mean, they treat you there like a professional athlete. I mean, when I mean there in terms of the community as well, you're very well known where you go out, and you feel, especially when you come into college, you feel that professional feel, that people recognize you, and you have some great fans there in Winnipeg. So the atmosphere was very pro-like. And I think that's playing the CFL and playing at Western really prepared me to when I went to play for LA and Dallas and Carolinas and Washington, all these teams. I already experienced those type of bigger crowds and higher pressure situations, so it made it a lot easier when transitioning to the NFL from a kicker's perspective, anyways.
You also had some really great coaches down south too, like Sean
Mm-hmm.
McVay, Matt Rule,
Mm-hmm.
Ron Rivera, just to name a few. Mike McCarthy, of course.
Yep.
How did coaches like that and their coordinators also get you prepared for that NFL journey that you were on?
I think the biggest difference between that from the coach's perspective is you really have like the CFL has us during training camp pretty much 12 hours a day, but that's the case in the NFL throughout the whole season. And so that's one big difference where the CFL is 4.5 hour rule, right?
Mhm.
So well, the coaches can't really get involved before or after those practices. It's more player led. And I think that's where the difference is here in the CFL. It's if you have a good set of players who understand what it takes to win, you'll meet before practice with the players or meet after practice. And then on top of all that, you got to fit in your workouts, where in the NFL, it's, you start your morning. I know with MacArthur, we started at 7:30 in the morning during the regular season. I started with a team meeting, and then one thing they really harped on during the week is understanding who we're playing. They did a lot of teaching in terms of what other teams are doing when it comes to different rules and learning from other teams. And then another thing was they really looked into the referees and their tendencies, which I've never seen up here. They really studied, these are the refs that we have this week. You know, and these refs have a tendency to call a lot of hold, so don't hold. Or these referees call a lot of PI, so don't do that. And so, you know, some of their tendency, they study them just as much as they study us. So that was really neat. But then, you know, you go into your routine to your positional coach, positional meetings, special teams meetings, workout, practice, lunch, come back, watch the practice, have another walkthrough of special teams meeting, then you have dinner, and then you're done for the day, but you're not out of there until 6 p.m. at the earliest.
When you're going through the special teams meetings, I know that it's really interesting because I'm also a special teams coach as well. So
Okay.
when you're going through the special teams meetings, are you also watching the other teams like field goal block setup and kind of how they come in at you?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit, it's more what, because not every team is going to come at you every single time. I know Hamilton did it quite a bit this year because they understand it's really windy in their stadium. And
Hmm.
when it's really windy, they use that to their advantage and they know kickers are going to kick shorter. So they bring two tall guys trying to block it. So you become aware and you study those. But I don't think you don't want to change too much to the fact that it affects your kick and affects your mindset when it comes to kicking those field goals. You trust the guys in front of you to make those blocks. It's more teaching the tendencies to the O line that, hey, this is what the D line is going to do. If you see this formation, this is what they're planning to do. So we had certain calls when it came to Hamilton, some other teams when they try to come for the block. So understanding, you know, where it's coming from and how to go through it.
Yeah, that really could play a mental toll on you because then you might,
Mm,
start to feel rushed or have to get it off quick. And yeah, who knows what
exactly.
happens at that point, right?
Yeah, especially if they have a speedster around the edge. I know in the NFL, because you have one less guy. So we were always responsible for the guy coming off the edge. So that comes down to your op time. And so if your op time was 135 or higher, then you got blocked and it'll be on you, right? And
Yeah.
versus if you had a 125 or 1.3 from snap to kick, then you know if something happens, you know, not entirely your fault, but at the same time, you understand where it's coming from.
It was great to see you come back to Canada this past season. What brought you
Mhm.
back to the Toronto Argos in 2024?
Well, for me, I was looking for opportunities still down south, and just saw that a lot of young guys that I thought weren't as good. Were still getting opportunities, and they were on crappy teams. So their biggest issue wasn't field goal kicking. So they kept them for development. It's understandable. You know, some of them were drafted, so teams are gonna put that much more emphasis on keeping those guys and developing them. That's why they draft them. And so I think it was time for me to. I was ready to, you know, continue my you know, post football career and to start and work in the real world. And I had started working last November, and then both Toronto and Hamilton really wanted me to come back, and you know, I was ready to move on, but you know, a side of me really wanted me to keep going, and keep playing. It's something that you can't just pick up 5, 10 years later and like, oh, I want to go back and work for this marketing company or that financial company. It's a little bit different when it comes to football. You know, I had the blessings from my wife as well to keep going, and that made the decision a lot easier. And then choosing between the two is just a matter of, you know, I was working downtown, and the Toronto was really working with me to, you know, work and play. So that made my decision a little bit easier. And Hamilton really wanted me to come there and be a captain and do all three, both punting and field goals. But they didn't want me to do the work, like the outside of the football field, like my actual career.
Mhm.
Um, like post football career, and so that made my job easier. And then having the company of Richter be right downtown, it made it easier for me to go. It's one train station away, so as soon as I'd be done practice on day three, I'd just pop on the go, one stop, I'll be downtown and back to work. And so they were very flexible. I think that's what made my decision a lot easier to come back. And I can and then work like Richter was really great when it came to deciding. Because I told them, hey, if the NFL calls, I'm gone. And they're like, I totally understand. But they're like, what about CFL? I'm like, we'll have that conversation. And when I had that conversation with my COO, and she's a big Steelers fan, and she basically was like, Darren, if I told you no, I'd want you to quit. So it just shows for the culture that they have building there at Richter, which really resonated with me and I really enjoyed. And same thing with the Argos. It's like we understand, football, especially for kickers. Like I don't have to be there all practice, every single practice, because there's days where we don't even kick any field goals, right? It'll be a punt day and punt return day. And so those days, it's like, do I really need to be there if I have something going on with Richter? And so both sides were really flexible, and that made my decision a little bit easier. You know, playing Hamilton the 18 and 19 really made me. I wanted to go there in the sense of I wanted to win for them, but to quit Richter and go play in Hamilton did make sense for my post football career and financially. So that's how I decided with Toronto and coming back.
A lot of people talk a lot about guys like Mike Pinball Clemens and Ryan
Hmm.
Dinwiddie. What's it, you just said about how, open they are and how understanding they are, but what's it like, working with guys like that every day that played the game, that have been in the position that you're in, now operating the team? Does it make it easier working with people that have been in your shoes before?
Yeah, absolutely. And not to and to add to that list is Mickey Donovan, the special teams coach.
Mm-hmm.
He is a players coach and really understands what players are going through and what's happening, and really gets the best out of each one of us. And then obviously with pinball, having him around being, a president, a coach, a GM, player, you name it, he's done everything in football. And the energy that he brings to each practice, and whenever you see him, he's always smiling, and that just makes the work environment like, great. And then Ryan, he's like such a big competitor, so you got a really good balance of pinball. You got a really good balance of RD and the competitiveness he brings to the field and to the guys, and then the understanding. I think for him, I never had a coach like him in this sense of what we need as a team when it comes to practices, how many reps we get in a day, and everything else. And he's very understanding and very helpful when it's like, how many kicks you need and how you need them. And so that was our, because I'm a guy who was like, I don't want to go out there and kick, 10 field goals in a 5 minute period and then be done. It's like I'd like to have situational. So we made sure, hey, if we're gonna have like a 2 minute period, can we please have like a point after a field goal, or embedded in there that that helps me prepare for the game. And he completely understood it, and it was like, of course. And so it's a really good match between all three big phases there. So I'm very fortunate and to learn from these guys too.
In 2024, the CFL tried to start the initiative with the chipped balls. What was
Mm.
your experience with them in training camp?
Uh, balls, and we're still working on those right now too. We've been working really closely with Wilson, and they actually came up in not just training camp, but they came up in one of the bye weeks as they tried to adjust the chips on having both sides, adding different layers on the inside, just trying to figure out the weight and see if there's any difference on that. Just because Sportable, the company that applies the chip, they're huge. They're the size of your palm. In comparison, the NFL is the size of a dime. And so I was just trying to work with both parties, with them, the CFL, Sportable, to say, is there a chip that we can use just for kicking balls that are the size of a dime. And then on the other end, Wilson is trying to work with what they've got, and then we're just trying to be the not the guinea pigs, but their R&D behind these. And in training camp, it just felt like the balls, we weren't able to control them past like 40 yards.
Mhm.
And there's times where we're kicking them. And because we were told, hey, if you don't like them, we're going to scrap them. And then we come to training camp, they're like, nope, you're using it. It's like, come on, guys. So there's quite a bit of back and forth. And of course, they want to help build the game in terms of technology. And I get the business side of things. I'm a business guy, so I
Mhm.
understand that. But when it affects your performance, I think that's where you draw the line. And so that's speaking to the CFL office, the union, everyone else, we came to the conclusion, hey, this is affecting our performance. And because as soon as you got about 40, depending on, and this is what we figured out is depending on where the chip was, we were able to figure out which way the ball was going to go
Mhm.
because it was weighted more on that side. So we were ready that weekend to, okay, we got to make sure that every time we kick the field goal, that the chip is on the right side every time so we can draw it in. But it's like if you're going from 55 out and you're giving your all, you guys still worry about the wind, and now you got to worry about drawing it with the wind or against the wind or sideways. So it just complicates and changes the way you kick, and I think that's where we drew the line. So we're working with them right now to see if there is some changes. They made a couple of changes in the last round. It's a little bit better, but I can still see the ball swaying to one way. And then also it's because of the extra weight, the ball is not rotating as cleanly as it should be. So working with everyone involved with the union, with the CFL, Sportable, Wilson, just to come up with a option so we can get some of these statistics for the games.
Is there going to be a chance that you'll be using some again this training camp to test out some new kind of designs from Wilson?
Both. There's a few of us that are involved right now that tend to kick a little bit earlier than others, and so we're kind of been doing the research and design for it and giving some feedback. So there is a chance, but there still needs to be a lot of work. I found like with the heavier ball, the distance declined a little bit for me and a couple of the guys. So we'll see. We're working with them. We're being cordial and we're giving them honest feedback. If I saw it like, hey, this works perfectly fine, it's not affecting it, and I know when I've hit a good ball and it's like, okay, why is that 10 yards to the left? It's like if I miss, it's like a couple of inches,
Yeah,
especially if you're
yeah.
kicking indoors. It's very rare that I'll miss by a lot, and it's like, okay, well, something's weird there. So.
Does it make you feel good to know that, the league and the developers want to have the kickers and some of the kickers involved in this process, and that way you guys can kind of work together to make the best product possible?
Well, yeah, because the ones from before the first round, they used a lab. They did it in a lab with a robot, and it's like, okay, that robot's going to hit it perfectly every single time, and it's going to give you those results. But that's not reality because we're going to get a different hold. We're going to get a different snap every time, and there's much more bigger variables than having a controlled situation and hitting that ball in the exact same sweet spot every single time.
Yeah.
Versus us, it's like might not hit the sweet spot, then wrapping around and all this stuff. So, it helps now that I wish they just did it a little sooner.
There was also, a little bit of noise surrounding the team in 2024, in different aspects off the field. How
Mhm.
did you and the team block that out and focus on the job at hand on the field and kind of just ignore what was happening off the field?
I think that came from our coaches as well, and not just the players. It's just the understanding, and we've been trained that way for so many years since the beginning of time. It's like once you get on the field, it's like you're there to play football. Once that whistle blows, you're playing football. It doesn't matter who's on the field, who's not. Those are the guys that you're playing with. Those are the guys you're going to battle with. I think that was the biggest mindset that we try to kind of put those. emotions to the side. Everyone that was affected with it, and there's so much going on, like you said. But we persevered through that and
Mhm.
really understood the type of team we had and how good we were. Just we knew we had a chance as long as we're in the playoffs. We'd have a chance because we'd play against the best teams and win against them, and then we'd lose to the worst teams. Four of our losses came from Hamilton and Edmonton. You know, so we knew that if we got in the playoffs and we'd be ready.
Speaking of being ready, in September against the Montreal Alouettes, you tied the
Mm.
CFL record with 8 field goals in a single game. Were you aware as the game progressed that you were coming up to that?
Honestly, I never thought about how many we're gonna get because I've even in college I've tied so many records with six or I think it was six field goals. I tied like three or four of them at the school and at Western. And when I always felt like when it came to that seventh field goal or the eighth field goal, it was always okay, let's go for it. So I never thought we'd get to that point. But I was just I was hoping a couple of them would go for them because we were really close. And then for me, it's like you going out there, kick out like a 20-yard field goal, the crowd's booing. It's like, coach, just go for it. But it worked out. We kicked all those field goals and we ended up winning by a few points, right? And that made the difference to if you look at all those close games we had last year, you lose a couple of those and you're out of the playoffs.
Do you feel better in a game when you are put into some of those other high pressure situations instead of just going out there and kicking converts all day?
Well, those are different. Like converts are great in the sense that your team is playing really well.
Yeah.
The higher pressure field goals, that's from a kicker's perspective. It's like that's what you play for. You want to show your worth to the team that you're mentally and physically strong and capable of doing the job. And so I think that's the difference there. So I enjoy them. That's what you train for, and that's what you want to play for.
As a kicker, I gotta ask this question.
Yeah.
What is your view on the Rouge?
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. It's great when it works for you, because we've been in a situation. This is what I think about. Honestly, I think it's part of the rules. It brings a different element of strategy.
Mhm.
So I think when it comes to that play that I know you're referring to, because it was a minute left, we hit a 51-yard field goal to tie it, and then I go up and kick a 41-yard field goal, and I'm like, oh, this is a breeze. We just smoked a 50-yard field goal, and then we had our backup holder. That was actually Arbuckle holding that game,
Mhm.
and it was probably me going a little bit quicker than I would have liked and just wrapped around the ball a little bit, just went over the post. But if you watch the film, they didn't have they should have had a few people. It all depends on the strategy. Again, it's like, do you want to go for the block or do you want to go in case he misses, then you can kick it out. Because if you talk to any special teams coordinators, they have a kick out team. So
Mhm.
they have four guys in the end zone, two on the post and two on the outside. Because I remember when going back to the old hashes, I remember Mark Trestman saying to me, Lirim, if we have a game to win and we're on the 1-yard line and it's 8-yard field goal and you're on the left or right hash, that's like a really impossible kick because you're going from such a short angle. So if we're tied, I'm going to ask you to miss. I'm just thinking, there's no way you're going to ask me to miss a field goal because I'm not going to do it. Because if you hit the post, the ball's dead.
Yeah.
But again, in reality, that's some of the conversations you have with coaches and coordinators. Say, oh, hey, like, I mean, that makes complete sense. I'd have to miss it, but hey, you know. And it came back to us in Edmonton at the very end of the year when Jake Julian punted the ball through the end zone for a Rouge to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, win some, you lose some, and that makes the great thing about the Canadian Football League. It's like you have these cool rules that you really have to strategize and take meeting time and take practice time to do that. And when it comes towards, and if you don't do it, especially early on in the season, it can come to bite you.
Going into the playoffs this past season, do you think it's better to have that bye week like in past seasons where you win the division? Or do you think it's better to go in and play all the games so that you're not having that rest week where any rest might happen?
Well, this is the crazy thing because we have week 18 bye week this year, the week before. So if we come first in the division, we're gonna have 2 weeks off, which is
Right.
that's I mean, great for in terms of having our bodies become fresh. But at the same time, it's, you know, you see some of the, I study sports management as one of my masters and looked at sports systems as well. And you can see in studying different teams, you can see when players or teams play like great teams, like 4 or 5 games in a row, they build that confidence
Hmm.
and they're coming in hot. And so I think it'll be very important. But I think you have to reward the guys, just like it's doing in the NFL. You get as many teams as possible in the playoffs. But I think if you made it to where only, you know, less teams made in the playoffs, it doesn't make sense. So I think this is a good way to reward them. I know, like if you look at soccer leagues in Europe, like if you're first, you get first in the whole regular season. That's like the biggest trophy,
Hmm.
right? There's no playoffs in there. So I think it's a good reward. Gives the guys a break. It just, for us, is gonna, if we do play where we're supposed to play and we have those 2 weeks off, it's gonna be really tough in terms of mentally getting guys ready and ready to go. So, you know,
Yeah,
we'll see.
it's a double-edged sword of it's
Yeah.
great to have, the 2 weeks off to rest your body, be
Yeah.
prepared, but then it's bad because you can't really get prepared on field because everyone's kind of more relaxed and rested.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, double-edged sword when it comes to that.
Yeah. How exciting was it going into Grey Cup week this week, being your first year back in Canada and going right to the Grey Cup?
I was just excited that I got the opportunity to play indoors. In comparison to the past 17, we were in what, a foot or two of snow in Ottawa, and then 19 with Hamilton. It was like -10 in Calgary, so it was always freezing. So I was just happy, for to be inside and to be back there again. And it was an awesome week. And the guys really prepared and guys had a lot of fun. We tried to do quite a few things together and just to get the guys more camaraderie. I remember the one night one of my great friends, he was one of my holders in at Western. He works for the Canucks, and I messaged him last second that we were arriving, I think Monday, and Tuesday there was a game against Calgary, and I asked him, hey, is there a way I can get some of the guys to the game just to create some camaraderie? He's like, well, I'm in charge of the boxes and we have a couple boxes that are empty. If you just cover the basic cost, we'll take care of you. And then so we got like 20, 30 guys to come to the game and just to, do some extra. My thing is always being more together, and then having some of these experiences really helps. Throughout the season, we did the same thing, went paintballing, and it's a great time for some of the guys that are from the States to experience some of the things up here. And, some of them are here alone, and to really create these memories is great.
What are you looking forward to coming up here in 2025? Because I mean, May is going to come up here pretty quick.
I know May's gonna come up quick, and my whole thing is, if as long as I become healthy and be ready for the season, I think that's the biggest thing. I know we have quite a few moves happening, guys getting traded, signing new guys, all exciting times right now. So I'm excited to meet some of the new faces, but also sad to see some of the guys that we built these relationships in the past year. I mean, going through battle with them, it's you get to know the guys on a personal level, and so it's sad to see those guys, but that's the league.
Yeah, it's the business.
Yeah,
And finally, I know you're really busy, so I don't want to keep you too
you're
long this
good.
morning.
Yeah,
You mentioned earlier that, during the time you also like to give back and volunteer and stuff like that. You're
yeah,
also coaching a bit right now, are you not, in the
yeah,
off season? So tell us
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So we have Coach Kick. His name is Ken Urquhart. He's helped some of the biggest names in Canada. Like if you look at all the records in the CFL or in the U Sports, he's had something to do with those guys. And so I met him as I was graduating high school, and my way to kind of help and give back with him and kind of get the next stage of or generation of kickers. We host every Sunday. We have kicking in Hamilton at Redeemer University there in the bubble from 8 till 9:30. We have kids from all over the area. We have another session on Saturday nights in London with other coach, Daryl Wheeler. And so we're trying to give back to the community and just understand like the kicking community, which I mean, it's because when I was coming up, you have, even now, it's like you go to the States, it's like $1,000 for the camp, and then it's like flight, and if you gotta go with a parent, you gotta rent a car. You're working up to $2 or $3,000 with food and lodging and everything else. So it's like these kids can come here and get the same amount of coaching. I've gone to the highest levels. I've gone to these camps myself, and I know what they're teaching there. We're in good communication with John Carney in Carlsbad, California, there near San Diego. He's the best one of all. So we'll send guys if guys want to go to the States, I'll send them there, just because I know he's fair with the guys and I know what he's going to teach them. So if guys want to just go down south for a week or two, they'll go down there. But we have, I think last year we had a kid in every school in the OUA that was either a snapper, holder, or kicker that we coached, which was really neat. And then we have another kid who was part of the Ohio State championship team this past week, right? And he was freshman All-American at Buffalo and spent 2 years there. And then Coach Day called him. Unfortunately, he didn't play, but it was a big insurance policy. But he was told that they're going to dress him and play him, but that's how things work down there. And so we have guys who've gone to the NFL. Guys, we have the best punter right now, Michael Horvath, who was at Mac. We coach him, and then Anthony too. So like all on the top leagues, we help. Jake Julian was with us last off season, helping some of the kids around too. So we have kids from all over southwestern Ontario. Sometimes we'll have guys from Ottawa come drive down and get coaching, and so we're just trying to give them an avenue to learn a little bit more
Where
about
can
what we do.
where can
Coach,
players find this?
yeah, if you just the best way is in on Instagram, Coach Kick _. That's the best way because like I said, we've had guys from Calgary, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, guys come from all over the country and get to learn a little bit more about what we do. And we try to be really fair with the guys because we understand how I went through it. And so just trying to give back.
Lirim, thank you so much for coming on the show this
Appreciate
morning.
it.
I know it's an
Yeah.
early morning, and I
Yeah, it's
appreciate it.
good.
And I hope the injury heals up quick. And excited to see what you do in 2025. And go Argos!
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And I see the CFL logo in the back there for the old one in your
Yeah.
backdrop. Let's bring that logo back.
That was our conversation with Toronto Argonauts kicker Lirim Hajrullahu. Great to have him on and talk about his insights as to what training camp also looks like, the differences between NFL and CFL, and how the meetings all run. It's quite interesting how different leagues run things different ways. Well, that is it for us this week. As always, you can catch us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at Around the CFL Podcast. And you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts from: Apple, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. Give us a listen and please keep giving those 5-star reviews. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and until then, we'll see you later.